Walt Disney. What do we know about him? He built a super successful company from scratch, which has been pleasing both adults and children for almost 100 years. Disney is the absolute record holder for the number of Oscars won, 26. No one has ever received this award more times than him. Despite all his merits, Walt's reputation is not at all ambiguous. Racism, sexism, tyranny, and Nazi propaganda, the creator of Disneyland is accused of everything, and it is worth noting, not without reason. In this issue you will find out, what did you not notice in Disney cartoons? Did you know that some of them had sexual messages in them? Is it true that some of the cartoon characters we know were drawn by Adolf Hitler? This episode is about the dark side of Walt Disney's personality. Make yourself comfortable, close the curtains, let's begin. Sexual innuendo and Satanism. It would seem that what could be more innocent than a children's cartoon? How can you discredit him and insert sexual innuendo? On the internet, Walt Disney is widely accused of influencing the subconscious of children with the help of the 25th frame and hidden messages. Look at this selection and you will be surprised at how many things you missed in cartoons. At first glance, nothing special happens, but if you start to look more closely, peering, using freeze frames and rewind, you will notice extremely obscene scenes, at least for small children. For example, in The Lion King, there are several such moments at once. Starting with a strange poster and ending with ambiguous inscriptions in the cartoon itself. If you still have doubts and are not completely convinced of the sexual overtones of Disney cartoons, here is another excerpt for you. And there are plenty of such moments in Disney cartoons to this day. There is a version that in this way Walt wanted to influence adults who watch the cartoon with their children. Using the technology of the 25th frame, he thus programmed the subconscious of the parents to make love, thereby increasing the birth rate of children. And more children means more views, which means more profit. According to another version, Walt deliberately inserted such footage into the cartoon, as he had a perverted mind. Also in the works of Walt Disney hundreds of times there are finger gestures inherent in satanic movements. The so-called goat gesture is found hundreds of times in cartoons, so some people accuse Walt of promoting Satanism. Racism in Disney cartoons. In the 21st century, racism is considered unacceptable. And after the events that occurred against the backdrop of the Black Lives Matter movement, society began to monitor racial justice even more closely. Particular attention was paid to cinematography. Thus, it was not without reason that signs of racism were found in the works of Walt Disney. For example, in the cartoon Fantasy, which was released in 1940, a dark-skinned centaur girl named Sunflower is depicted as a servant, polishing the hooves of white-skinned centaur girls to a shine. The cartoon, which, by the way, later won an Oscar, caused a flurry of emotions, including negative ones from the dark-skinned part of the population. Later, due to a scandal that broke out, the scenes with the servants had to be removed. Here's another example of racism from Walt Disney. Lady and the Tramp has become a truly iconic cartoon. Dogs play the role of positive characters, while two Siamese cats, Si and Am, appear in the role of negative ones, speaking with a funny Chinese accent, narrow eyes, and protruding teeth. A sort of caricature of Asians. Cats are depicted as vile, two-faced creatures who cause nothing but trouble. America in the early 50s had a difficult post-war relationship with Japan. Also at this time, many Chinese migrants moved to the United States. Walt Disney's negative attitude towards Asian people has been repeatedly noted in his other animated films. Cartoons such as Peter Pan, Dumbo, and Song of the South were also seen as racist. Walt Disney himself took part in all these works. After his death in 1966, the Walt Disney Company continued what it had started, and accusations of interracial discrimination rained down with a vengeance. The Jungle Book and the Monkey King, infectiously dancing African American rhythms, Aristocats, The Little Mermaid, The Lion King, the list of the accused is quite long. As a result, in October 2020, warnings about racism began to appear on the Disney platform before the start of some cartoons. The program contains negative images and or depicts inappropriate treatment of people of other cultures. According to some reports, on the first day after the warning appeared, another 10 million people signed up for the Disney platform. Propaganda of Nazism and sympathy for Hitler. Walt Disney's attitude towards Jews and Nazi Germany deserves special attention. The creator of the Disney world was a pathological anti-Semite. He did not hire Jews and in every possible way avoided contact with them in his life. So in one of the Disney cartoons, a wolf dressed as a Jew knocks on the house of the three little pigs. This version was later, of course, edited, but the fact remains that Walt supported the ideas of fascism and openly expressed sympathy for Hitler's policies. And the Führer, in turn, was a passionate Disney fan. Hitler dreamed of how Mickey Mouse would help him exterminate the Jews. Ulrich Stahl, the director of a documentary about German animation, once said. In 1938, the film Olympia from director Leni Riefenstahl was released in Germany. This is a documentary film about the 1936 Olympic Games, promoting the ideas of Nazism. Reich really wanted as many U.S. residents as possible to know about this film. For this purpose, director Riefenstahl goes to the United States. As soon as she set foot in America, Leni faced severe criticism. The New York Anti-Fascist League, the mayor of New York and the Film Actors Committee opposed her arrival. The people were categorically against showing a film promoting fascism. But there were also those who were in favor of this idea with both hands. Including Walt Disney. He easily agreed to help Leni collect views and actively contributed to the propaganda of Hitler's ideas. It is noteworthy that in 1940 Disney refused the British's request to make an anti-Nazi film about St. George who defeated the dragon. Hitler also consistently reciprocated Walt's feelings, calling the cartoon Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs the best film of all time. And in 2008, news appeared on the internet that some of the characters, including Pinocchio and two dwarfs from Snow White, were drawn for Disney by Adolf Hitler himself. The director of the Norwegian Museum of Military History said he found these drawings on the back of a painting he bought at auction. The illustrations bear the initials A, Adolf Hitler, the handwriting matches that of the Führer, and a check of the paint showed that it coincides with the production of Snow White. I am 100% sure that Hitler drew them, says the person who found the drawings. An oppressive boss and a tyrant while remaining a good, kind boss. Walt Disney managed to fulfill the first condition perfectly, but in relations with his subordinates he often went too far. His company had strict rules, money was paid only for time spent directly at work. According to some versions, as soon as an employee stopped work and went, for example, to the toilet, Disney timed this time on a stopwatch and deducted money from the salary. All employees were required to strictly adhere to a dress code, men wore suits and ties, and women wore long, discreet skirts and blouses. When Disney crossed the threshold, there was such silence that you could hear a fly flying. It was becoming very difficult to work, says one of the designers who worked for Walt's company, Rolly Crump. And that's just the beginning. The apogee of exactingness occurred during the work itself. Animators and artists reworked the same drawings over and over again because Disney was meticulous in every detail. Surprisingly, this is a fact, Walt himself was not an outstanding artist, so often he simply could not convey his fantasies to his employees. The minimum wage also affected staff dissatisfaction. Working extremely hard, often even overtime, most employees received meager wages. Walt promised his subordinates to compensate for the lack of money with good bonuses if the film paid off. But even after successful projects, the salary remained the same. Only a few employees, who were selectively chosen by the autocratic boss, received bonuses. All this led to the fact that in 1941 the workers went on strike and did not allow Walt Disney into their own company. The strikers demanded higher wages and the creation of a trade union that would protect their rights and interests. Moreover, this was not just a conflict, it was a real revolt of the company's employees, which lasted for many weeks. Walt Disney reacted to this whole mess with anger and the dismissal of many employees. The problem was solved only by sending the founder of the company on an urgent unscheduled vacation. Sexism and labor discrimination against women, get feminists off the screen, I love Mickey Mouse more than all the women I have ever known, Walt Disney joked. But as we know, there is some truth in every joke. One of the most talked about rumors about Disney is his attitude towards women. Walt's sexism manifested itself at work, at home, and even in cartoons. He tried not to hire women because he considered them not talented enough and, moreover, they could become pregnant and leave the work unfinished. Before the war, representatives of the fair sex were only hired in those departments of the company where drawings were translated onto film. The state of affairs changed only when the United States entered World War II and mobilization began. Men went to war en masse, and with a shortage of personnel, Disney was forced to change its policy. Walt's position was clear even in his works. For example, in educational short films from the Disney studio it was said directly, a woman's function is to cook, clean, but most importantly give birth to children. In the cartoons produced by the company to order from government agencies, a woman's life was reduced to two events, her birth and the birth of a child. On top of that, attentive viewers noticed that in most of Walt Disney's cartoons, the main characters either did not have mothers, Ariel, Belle, Jasmine, Aladdin, Cinderella, Snow White, and Bambi, or they played minor roles. The Lion King, Sleeping Beauty. Disdainful attitudes towards women also manifested themselves outside of work. According to some versions, Walt Disney was never an exemplary family man. His priority was exclusively work. Thus, during his career, Disney won the most prestigious Oscar award 26 times. Think about this number. This is an absolute record, no one has ever received this award more times than him. Well, once there were rumors that because of 2 losses at the Oscars, Disney stopped inviting his wife to the ceremony, believing that she was bringing him bad luck. And Disney forbade his 2 daughters from watching his cartoons, because he believed that they were not able to properly appreciate his work. In addition to the above, there are a number of mysterious and dark sides of Walt Disney. For example, his ardent fight against communism, cooperation with the FBI and denunciations of his own employees. Walt hated communists, and therefore, at the first opportunity, he handed them over to the intelligence services. According to some versions, more than 500 of his statements against his colleagues were found in the archives. Rumors that Walt Disney was a Freemason are hotly debated. There is a lot of evidence and investigations on this topic floating around the internet. The creator of Disneyland died more than half a century ago, and debates about what he really was like are still going on. So who is Walt Disney, a kind storyteller who made a dream come true, or an anti-hero who has a detrimental effect on people's subconscious? You decide. Write your answer in the comments. In any case, this man managed to build a real media empire and forever wrote his name in world history. The only question is, what price did he have to pay for it?